the last episode of this series, of this passion project, um, that Sarah and I started a year ago. And we're going to kind of wrap this up, who we were, what things were happening for each of us last year, kind of reminisce, go through memory lane, but then also just recognize that, this whole project has been about, I think, the exploration of capacity and what that means and all these different angles and flavors of it. And in talking about it, we've created that for ourselves in this and this kind of microcosm, and hopefully for you all. So I'm gonna let my co-host say her thing. I'll do the intro, but I want to get her thoughts before we
continue with the end. I am
Yes.
sad, and it's bittersweet, but knowing that this was it started as a project, and the theme of today is how our beginnings, and I'm excited to explore what happens next. And I am also wanting to take my time and soak in that this is the last of the capacity conversations, which is a conversation so dear to my heart. And even as we were talking about before we started recording today, it's hard to intentionally try to build resilience when you are with people who very clearly don't practice it or try it, at least in the same ways we do. And so I think the idea of building capacity to execute a job or execute a goal, or to get to where you want to go, or to achieve a dream, or to follow a path in a good way, to do anything, we need resiliency to some degree. And to have these conversations over the past year and a half has been a joy. And I'm excited to dive into what it's been like to reflect how we've built capacity. Actually, when I was writing over the past year and a half, what has happened month over month, and how it's changed, how looking back on it so much is from a big, I don't know, aerial perspective on, wow, my life has a certain arc to it. I can see it here. And I wrote how I've built capacity / resilience. And so, because I think that's what we do. I've kind of figured it out. That's what we're doing, is we're building resilience to achieve the life that we want.
I feel like, well, I'm gonna do the intro. I promise you all. We're gonna, but
yeah, I'm Sarah, if you're new here.
No, you're good. Okay, so maybe I'll just pause that. That's very, I think, what is it? Apropos. It's very unique to us that we go on these side quests and tangents, and it all relates. And so, if you're new here, then that's our jam. But I'll do the intro, and then I'll go with the beginning of the end. So we are two women from each coast of the United States having a challenging dialogue about self-trust, transformation, and the reality most modern millennials are facing today. Do we actually have the capacity to do all the things we want to do? If you're joining us for the first time, my name is Raquel Sands. I am a Clarity guide and cacao producer, which if you saw in my other episode, in our other episode, and I seek to support freedom seekers, solopreneurs, freelancers, people who want to make their own way in the world. I support them as best I can in sustaining their peace, purpose, and prosperity on their terms. And I pass it on to my lovely, awesome, glorious, stupendous co-host, Sarah.
I am Sarah Liljegren, and I am in the business of rewilding real estate. I'm a licensed real estate agent in Washington State. And yeah, I've been licensed for a few years. I do residential real estate, but I am very, very curious how real estate as a means of creating community and building and living amongst each other as people, how that can bring us closer to nature and natural cycles and each other in a way that is healthy for future generations and is sustainable and regenerative, because there's a lot that needs healing. And I think that certain types of how we live and house ourselves can support a lot of different, not support a lot of different aspects of our lives. Well, that's true, but I think it also addresses a more critical issue of a lot of the different crises. So it's like healing wounds, healing societal wounds. And so I just wonder how village lifestyle would help us get back to a sense of connectedness as a culture and maybe a species. So that's the question I hold.
What you said before about the urge, or like the pattern that you've noticed in your life, and I wanna go back to that before we go back to the future, like go back to the past. I was trying to be cute. Maybe that's not cute, but like go back to the
Cute.
that like I think that is so true. And I remember, I think you and I had that conversation about like there are cycles and we just go back and kind of I don't know if strengthen those cycles, but like revisit them in different ways and different angles. And I love what you said about resilience, because that's something that I've thought about in terms of, there's no gym for our mind or our emotions necessarily. I mean, the relationships we go through and have, I think if we choose to see it as a way of developing resilience, it is. Even if we're not choosing to see it, we are still developing. But I think there's something special about consciously deciding I'm pressure testing my beliefs or my values, or I'm pressure testing what feels good, like getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, especially in this space. I think we've been able to hopefully create a safe space to be unsafe. I don't know, but like I think we've been able to tackle some really big things over the course of this year and a half, and all the better for it. Like I think that's something I now, after doing this project, I kind of ask myself is, we get comfortable. There's a certain level of homeostasis, but then we need to challenge ourselves in some way, because if not, then the neutrality, then the complacency, and the lack of resiliency. And I think that is the nature of life, is to be able to grow and fall and grow and fall, and if we don't fall, then we're not growing. And so it's like this yin yang, this need for trials and tribulations, for difficulties, and
Growth.
for growth. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I love when you said resilience, because I'm like, that's the word. So yeah, the first thing that we wanted to start with is kind of where we were, who we were, what was happening last year. And this project started because I reached out to Miss Sarah. I remember Googling. I feel like, so where I was I had already about 2 years doing podcasting, and my podcast had different names because I didn't know necessarily what it was. I'm not talking about career. I'm not necessarily talking about making money. Like I'm figuring that out. But I was having guests, and I was having my own episodes. And at the time, last April, I was figuring out about real estate and what it looks like to have a home and be sturdy, have structure, have roots. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have anybody, or I've not had a talk with someone who knows that area, that world. And a lot of the people that I had talked with previously had a lot of like Tad Hargrave marketing for hippies, like a different approach to marketing, or a different approach to astrology, or like there was always something, a different angle And it was predominantly, I think, for those of us who are alternatively inclined. Like we don't do things normally. We find our own way in life. And I think that's been my niche, or that's me. And then people have resonated with that. And I found Sarah. I was Googling something around nature and real estate or something, keywords, and she came up. And I was like, oh my gosh, somebody who is speaking my language or is seeing from a similar vantage point, and reached out, and we got on a call. And I think the way even we got on a call, we were both traveling at the time. We were like, the wires kind of crossed a little bit, but it worked out. Like it all happened in a really cool way. And then by the time we connected, had a video chat, it went on and it went on, and I feel like instantly felt this energy, this connection, and then it was like, let's do a whole series. Why are we limiting ourselves? Or like, how can we tap this conversation? Like there's so much in here. And the seed for the Capacity Conversations project was born, and we started our Google document, which has all of the themes, and we started just brainstorming. And every single time I met with Sarah, it was like, I feel rejuvenated. I feel seen. I feel heard. I feel nourished. And I remember at the time also, I was struggling with work. I was trying to figure out, like, how do I continue to do what I want to do, which is what I lovingly call income sovereignty, which is totally different, I think, than anti-career coaching, or business building or whatever. It's like sovereignty in your way of making money. And sovereignty can mean different things to different people, and money and the way we make, like, all of these things can mean different things, but together, it's like, how do I emancipate myself from the systems that force me to do things in a certain way, and how can I remove those shackles or trade off the different problems, like seeing things from all these different nuances. And so I wasn't sure how to package my thing, how to help people. I had some services, but they were just kind of sometimes up, sometimes down. And I was a contractor at Fannie Mae, which is about an hour commute from where I live in Northern Virginia, to Washington, D.C. And I was really miserable. I was really miserable commuting, because that's time, that's energy, mental, emotional capacity that just gets parked on the train, and that I felt like I'm not doing anything. I'm not feeling fulfilled and nourished. And I think fulfillment has always been a question in my life of, like, what's fulfilling. And then everything with the new administration really changed my role, and downsizing. I was a contractor, so I didn't have the infrastructure. I wasn't an employee. And so the whole team got downsized, or my team got downsized, and it was just a lot of pressure in a short amount of time. And from April until October, I was in that role, and then I was let go because they continued to downsize and let go of people. So it was a change. Like, I think that whole year, it was this feeling of what I'm supposed to do. This feeling of anticipatory bracing is a term that is new to me. That's like, in the back burner, in the behind the scenes, there's this feeling of anxiety. And I think we all, as millennials, as anybody listening to this, have that. There's not a day, I think, where any of us go through just completely in calm and peace and in centeredness. I think there's always this, how are they going to react? What's going to happen here? Like, there's always this anticipation and this preparation for anticipation. We don't even know what could happen, but we're already bracing, arms up. And I found myself doing that a lot last year, just living in that state. And financially, okay. I mean, no debt, got myself out of debt. years ago. School debt, car debt. But just the feeling of, I don't know where the money is going to come from. I don't know what the safety, the security, because that trickles into housing, and then what's going to happen with the house or the rent, and like all these things are tied up together. And in my relationships, I was feeling frustrated, especially at work, because being a contractor had a certain flavor to it at Fannie Mae. Not in every organization is different, but at Fannie Mae in particular, you have a different color badge, so they automatically visually distinguish you from someone else, from an employee. You're locked out of certain areas. You're not, if you choose to go to happy hour or whatever, that's on your own dime. So you're kind of systematically excluded in ways, even though it may not be insidiously, not with, like, the person themselves may not be malicious, but the system that we're all swimming in felt a bit insidious. Especially, I had worked at Freddie Mac 2 years prior, and very similar structure to Fannie Mae, but totally different approach.
Are you saying, I'm sorry, can I interrupt?
Yeah, no, please. Yeah.
Are you saying that Fannie Mae has happy hour that's included for its employees?
Oh. Not all teams.
Oh, okay. Oh, like they would. Oh, like maybe like the manager would take people out for happy hour, and it was like a team building thing. Okay. I was somehow picturing, like, I don't know. I sometimes picture in like the big tech or government jobs where like there's ping pong in the break room and like kombucha on tap, and like is there a little mini bar for happy hour in the afternoon, like, and it's just there as an amenity or something.
I mean, you're not wrong. When I was at Uber, that was the case. There was kombucha on tap, and there was lunch provided, and like they had a nutritionist, and like you could tell how many protein. So like that is a thing, but at Fannie Mae, it wasn't. It was just this, like, you're functioning with the team, but you're not part of the team. At least that was my experience in the department I was in. So maybe I'll caveat that. But all of that was, but all of that was really uncomfortable. And I think this is, I'm going to zoom out to where I'm at now after I kind of recap this. But, like, I don't think people realize or really, sit with this discomfort, that all of these things affect the ability to work, the ability to feel, like they can speak up, even if it's not going to affect them, but maybe it'll have a positive impact on the team or whatever. But it's just, it affects all of these micro things, I think really affect our level to feel fulfilled, sovereign, safe. And it's exhausting to even kind of check that within myself, speaking for myself, as like a duty. It's my duty to be aware of these things that are affecting me, because if I'm not aware, then it might crop up in my other relationships, or it might crop up in my health. And so it's just this cycle, this ripple effect. And so I was very cognizant of that, to the point where, it felt very isolating that I would go commute. Not everybody was commuting for Northern Virginia. Most people were in DC, because that was kind of the big call, was if you're not in the area and you're not willing to relocate to be here for this job, then quit, or like don't come. So, there were these different layers of differentiation, and it just felt like, oh my God, everything is just money. It's always money. Putting my emotional health, my fit, like all these things for the sake of the opportunity to make money, not even, like I said, safety and sovereignty, but just money that's passing through, because every month have certain things that need to get checked. So it was really disheartening, because nobody would talk to me. I'm not part of the team officially, and my boss at the time was in Arizona. So I really had no reason to go in except to perform the whatever thing that they needed to check the box until my boss got fired, and then I became a team of one. And so it was very stressful. Looking back, I'm very proud that the muscles that I developed in that instance, and just I think over time, have helped me build the sense of self that I have now, the sense of confidence, and I think it's things like that can feel like nothing, like, okay, I stand up for myself, or okay, I said this thing. But in actuality, like, these little things have such big ripple effects down the line. I didn't know, or I wouldn't have thought that me standing up for myself last year, also to my manager, who was not my manager at first, she was my manager's manager, and having a conversation, a very candid conversation with her about commuting, about blah, 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 blah. Like, I wouldn't know that that planted a seed in me that, previous to this recording, as Sarah knows, I had a huge thing today with work. And it was because of these little seeds, these little pressure test resilience muscles, that over time get built. And I think that's the biggest practice, is like, we don't realize how we think in the moment, or I think in the moment, something might be insignificant, but it's building something in me. And reflecting on my career work last year, laid off in October, and then I was kind of like, oh my God, what do I do now? It's not the first time I've been in this spot, but I didn't want to be in that spot. I was content to be complacent. Like, I just wanted to not exhaust my capacity all the time. And my prayer was answered because I got laid off, and 2 months without work, which led into a very different opportunity that I've never had in my life before, working for a tiny, tiny, tiny 12-person nonprofit. And it runs as a startup. Like, they run as a startup, people doing multiple things, and there's no infrastructure. And it's been very interesting. It's been hard, and but also in a good way. Because I was telling Sarah, I'm like, I don't. If anything, from last year and this year, it just reaffirms that I don't believe that people earn. Like, you don't earn air, you don't earn water, you don't earn, what am I supposed to say? Not breathe? Like, you just need air, you just need water, you need food, you need nourishment from that food, not genetically modified bullshit. Like, there are needs that are non-negotiable because they are needs. If not, they wouldn't be necessary. And, today, which is July 30th, 2026. And I know we're recording this, I think, in the time of a solstice, and like there was a full moon in Aquarius, and like all the things were in summer season. And I had a full, very grown, very, I would say, I don't know if mature, but just a full on conversation with the executive, the president, the main person in charge, for an hour. And I wouldn't have thought that I would have been capable of that, and being very vulnerable and transparent and exercising all of my embodiment, all of my strengths and whatever. And so all of that is to say that I don't think we realize who we're becoming or who we already are, and the ways that manifests itself. So I'm going to stop here if Sarah wants to interject, because I just talked about work stuff, but I want to hand it off and see what are you sitting with?
Well, with work, I think that's such a, you when you were talking about work earlier, I got this idea of like growth coming through hardship, but it's not that it's hardship, it's it's that growth is hard. And that nothing grows without, I mean, even a seed. I use the plant metaphor all the time, maybe too much, but it's like the seed, the entire process of a seed going from hard, dry seed to even sprout is a fucking traumatic process. It completely loses its boundary. It completely transforms. It's transmuting while underground, while simultaneously searching for light. So like you're evolving in an environment that you can't stay in. And the idea of us like going from phase to phase or chapter to chapter in our life without any challenge. Did I freeze?
A little bit. You were talking about like the plant is looking for the light, and then also the trauma.
The idea of transforming in an environment that you cannot stay in, that is just an experience or a foundational phase of is. So that's what I was getting to, and I hope wasn't cut off, was that the idea that we can move from phase to phase in our own lives without any pain or challenge is just really silly.
Yeah.
And there's no way that we can grow without some challenge. And it doesn't have to be, but I think that's I was just thinking, I wonder if I should turn off that Wi-Fi on my phone. And that it's not that I think that's the thing that I've learned, especially because of the capacity conversations, is that growth and challenge, or the challenge through growth, has a shape and a texture and a process that if we start to err on the side of traumatic experience, like it's no longer growth. It's either stagnation or regression or something else, but it's not the blade upon which you sharpen yourself. It's the thing that's like oppressing or pushing you down or like taking you off of your path. And if you're trying to achieve anything in your life, you need to know where you're going and feel oriented to it to some degree. And if you're just like constantly caught in the water, I think that's hard to build resilience that way. But knowing where you are and orienting yourself properly, or at least having the eyes to see it and the muscles to practice it in the containers that are appropriate to practice it in, actually you get to evolve into like exactly the person you want to be. And of course not exactly, because life doesn't work that way, but like I think people can get what they want if they know what they want.
Well, yeah.
I mean, yeah, of course, following the law and do not harm and all the things, but I think that's what our generation and what inspired us to even have this conversation is that like we don't, like when we're working so hard, we don't often get what we want. And so like are we putting our efforts into the right things that help us get there? And maybe that means yes for a season, but not losing sight of ourselves in pursuit of ourselves.
Yeah. No, I love, exactly. Because it's like, I think that there's value in being lost, or like sometimes putting ourselves in unknown. I think to do that, not every day. It's like the thing with the gym. I'm big on gym now because I don't know if I've told you actually, but I'm so proud of myself. I can squat 165 now.
Nice.
So I'm like, yeah, so it's been great. And so it's like literally that's a container for resilience, that I'm putting my muscles under these things. But I'm not constantly every day or every week or whatever, like, okay, now we up the ante. Like there needs to be a sense of consistency or reprieve, I think, or like, okay, we're okay now. Because I think that, and I think I learned this through job hopping, of if I'm constantly uprooting myself, then where is the solidity? And then I think even chameleons, because I was gonna say, oh, I became like a chameleon, but even chameleons have their sense of self and their sense of, like, I think both
And
things, yeah.
yeah,
Um, so I do, but 100%, like, the knowing is half of the thing. Like, even the awareness and the identification of the thing, I think is the hardest thing. Um, because it takes real vulnerability, it takes realness to have to admit and set aside the time and the space and it's hard. Like, I tell Sarah and my friends all the time, like, AI has become my assistant, my pseudo therapist. One, because I can afford it, but two, because I have access to it. And for me, access is a big thing. I can't always rely on my husband in the way I would like him to, when I need him to, how I need him to. He also has his own stuff. My mom, my friend, like, we all have finite um, capacities and things going on. And not to say that I want to use AI infinitely, but with respect, um, it's really helped me to have that container of, like, maybe just bear witness. Don't tell me what to do, right? We got to kind of teach always. There's always this instructing. Even if I were to tell my husband, like, I still have to tell him, I don't want your advice. Like, I'm still even managing that container, regardless of what the container looks like for resiliency and awareness. But AI for me has been a tremendous help, because I feel like I'm constantly processing things. And if I don't take a minute to just sit with whatever feeling I'm having, and it just passes me through, either I eat dysfunctionally because I'm like angry and I'm like angry eating, or it's like that in and of itself. And last year, and then, just all of this job hopping has been a tremendous uh, blessing, but also, that resiliency, that growth. Growth is hard, like you said. Other things in my life last year, almost had a divorce. Almost divorced my husband. I don't want to disclose all the things, but just suffice it to say that there was a huge breach of trust, financially, and it was really hard. That was another moment where I was cracking open. There was the seed that we thought we had was cracking open. There were other sprouts happening, and where is the light? What are we trying to do? And spent a week with a friend in Delaware for my birthday. And normally, I spend my birthday with my husband, so that was a big detour from that. And there was a lot of things last year, relationship wise, with my mom, family, that broke. And I think it took months of repair. I mean, I remember I didn't talk to my mom for months. That was the first time in my life that something like that had happened. On top of the fact that she was not ever my go-to parent, it was my dad. And so trying to rebuild something with this person, this woman, this parent, this mother figure who wasn't really my person as a child or as a teenager, but now as an adult, having to form that, or wanting to form that. And then in the formation, having these ruptures, having these, and then compounding that with my husband and just all of it. It was a lot. And then with the job uncertainty, and it was a lot of compounding from all different angles. And what got me through, I think, was really finding the small moments of ease and giving myself that. Because I think something I've realized about myself is that I can be quite hard on myself. Something I was telling Sarah before this call was that in the discussion, confrontation, whatever you want to call it, with the director of my now organization, I kept doubting myself. I was kind of like, should I? Would this be good? And that's the bracing. That's the constantly, I think, looking at things from different angles in anticipation of like, I thought, oh my God, the worst thing that could happen is I get fired because I'm saying these things, and Virginia's an at-will state, and maybe she doesn't want to hear what I have to say. Maybe she doesn't have to, but I'm going to say it anyways. And I think last year, because I started speaking up much more and not filtering, because I think I would filter. I would be kind of like softer in my delivery, or I would change some of the language so that it didn't come across as very direct or blunt. But in not doing that, last year especially, in my containers, in my relationships, personal relationships, I think gave me the safety, gave me the permission to be like, you know what? I'm tired of holding it in. I'm tired of performing and doing this, and I'm just tired. I'm just gonna give myself the rest that I need. And that has been a huge lesson carried over this year. With work, with business, like everything has its time. I'm not stressing after 5. I try not to. It's like, okay, close it. I'm gonna do this, and I think I've gotten really good at compartmentalizing. That like not everything is gonna bleed into each other, and I'm just gonna say it like it is, and I care. I care how it lands, but I don't care. I don't know how this is gonna sound, but like, it's a trade-off. I'd rather be direct and honest and whatever it is in that moment, unfiltered, than have it be watered down and filtered, and then the message is not come across. And I can't guarantee that in my personal relationships or at work, however I'm going to come across is how they perceive. It could be a projection onto me, what they are feeling and interpreting. But I just know for sure that I'm not like trading off my integrity and my sense of honesty for the sake of their perception of me. So yeah, that was a big thing last year.
Yeah. It's been so cool to witness. Yeah. And the resilience that's formed because of it.
Yeah. And then the last thing is when I actually went and met Sarah.
That feels like so long ago, but not like also last week or something.
I know, exactly. So yeah, throughout all of this, the work, the relationship stuff, Sarah and I were having the capacity conversations at least once a month. And I know in December, I think January, we scheduled like 2 or 3. So we're really knocking them out. And I was like, I want to go because I've made a commitment to myself that I want to do a solo trip once a year, or wherever I want to go. If I've been to the same place, so it's got to be by myself. Ideally, it's somewhere I've never been, because I like that. I like that edge that I shape myself with, of being in a totally different space where nobody knows me, and it's kind of like I'm finding myself, literally. And I had never been to the state of Washington, and I'd always want to go to Seattle. Sarah is not in Seattle. I'm not saying where she is, but
Not anymore. Nope.
Yeah, not anymore. But I was like, oh my God, maybe it's. I mean, I don't know anything about. I mean, I have family in LA, but that's a whole other thing. And I'm like, I don't know how close you are to Seattle. And we coordinated, and I booked the flight in December, and already we were planning and had a Notion board, and I still have it. I'm keeping it forever. Yeah, went out to see her in April. Went to Seattle. Oh, it was March?
Yeah, because you were here. I
Was
remember you were here for Justin's birthday.
Oh, that's right. It was March. Yeah, you're right. Oh my
And then the lunar eclipse came out just in celebration for, your trip.
my God. And so it was so cool that like a year from when we had first emailed each other, that I was meeting her in person. I was meeting her in person, and I did a road trip by myself. That was the first time that I had done a road trip by myself in another state. I've done road trips before, but not as the only driver. Well, no, I take that back. I have done a road trip in Virginia as the only driver, but not in another state. So maybe I'll and so just learning about myself in that way, seeing Sarah, and I was telling Sarah that I was scared that I was gonna be catfished, even though I see her all the time on video, and I can see that it's her, but yeah, it was just such a tremendous experience. And then since March, now we're in July, things have just really come together. I feel like I have such a strength and inner resilience that I'm not saying that I am impenetrable or that I have all the answers for work and relationships. Like, I still have questions. I'm still working on things. The work is never ending. And I feel strong and confident and honest, sincere, in a much brighter way. I feel like those things have always been a part of me, but now, after those areas being kind of twisted and turned and pushed and pulled and like all these pressure tested, I feel like I can claim them more, these qualities, these identities. Because I feel like before I was like, yeah, I'm honest, and I was honest, and it was filtered. It was like, let me massage, let me soften this for the sake of, fill in the blank, work, relationship, someone else, something else. And I don't do that anymore. I mean, maybe potentially I think, is this when I need to do it? Or am I just decompressing because, like a steam kettle, like a kettle that's steaming, is like, I have to release pressure somewhere. Is this the place to release pressure? So I think that's where I question myself now. Like, is this going to be in service to me, actually, in the way that I need it to be? Is this actually potentially going to build the resilience, that structure, in a healthy way? Because I think that, whatever healthy means, because I think that if I were to just like say things haphazardly at any point in time, I think I'm also creating trauma for myself and others, and that's not helpful. But there is this level of like, I'm going to be blunt, I'm going to be direct, I'm going to hold myself and others accountable. And I'm going to pick when, not just because I want to, or I'm feeling this ick, I'm feeling this tension, but is this the way to channel it that's going to be of service to myself, and potentially with love and care and consideration for all involved, for others? So I feel like I've zoomed out now. It's not just me and my little world. It's like other people, other layers that I bring along in that resilience journey with me, that maybe they don't even know that they're in that with me, but I've put them in
Yeah.
to consider them. So yeah, that's been me for the past year.
Oh my gosh, it's so cool to hear it and to think back that, like, in this, I guess, yeah, in this whole journey, looking back at the capacity conversations, yeah, your visit was not quite in the middle, but it's like in the middle of that, we got to meet in person and keep weaving this at a very deep level. And I know that this whole, like, this practice that we're practicing in our own lives will continue. But I guess even right now, I'm just kind of sitting with how profound the practice of looking at your life and creating a container or a ritual of any kind, however long it is, the gift of self-reflection is such a gift. And to be able to be witnessed with, and to witness you, and to feel witnessed by you, and to dive into specific aspects of capacity and resilience. And I thought it'd be fun to go through the themes. I don't have like our most recent ones written in this list, but that might be a fun thing. But to look back at add the ways that we have built resilience. It's very it's confidence building, and I suppose that's why I practice a lot of the things I practice is to build competency and confidence, and to feel like I can keep going down the path that I want to, and even if that means changing course and pivoting, I have the self-trust and skills to look at myself and my life and go, okay, what needs to change? And that's so cool to see the ways that you pivoted and I pivoted over the year, and all the different things that capacity does relate to. So I can read. Do you have After Faith versus Faith, like since March?
Yes.
I can start with our very first one and go through.
Yeah. Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we started airing in June, and that was our origin stories. And then we talked about kind of our whole lives up until that point, and so which is why we kind of wanted to reflect on this journey at this point. And so how did we get here, both in the context of how did we end up talking about this topic in particular, and how did we as a society get to the point where we're so disconnected and ungrounded. I use that word, but I'm like, I don't know if that quite does it justice. It's like this disembodiment from our world. And I see it through that lens a lot. And I think you see it through the lens of like, because we're disconnected from ourselves, we don't even know what kind of living we want to make. And there's, how did we get here, both individually and collectively? And then the next episode was about deficiencies. I have a background in nutrition, and so I also see the lens, and I don't know if it's like we talk about astrology too, like my ability to see as a Libra, to see the balance or imbalance in everything. Too many applications for balance there are. But it's true, it's all of life. Gee whiz, like we survive because of balances in our metabolism and the environment. And which goes into the season of September. We talked about balance, specifically the equinox and zombies. I loved talking about zombies and feeling inspired by a John Vervaeke interview that really inspired like the relationship between zombies and bullshit. Like this rise in love of zombies or the undead of our society has fed our capacity, I think, for bullshit, because we see that life and death and like, oh, but it doesn't actually die. Oh, there isn't really a true cycle of anything. And that goes back to balance and like the need for reason and rationality along with emotional intelligence. The next episode, we talked about survival skills, both in communication skills, but also from my lens on real estate really came from a survival skill excursion. I started learning about bushcraft and I'm like, real estate is everything. and how we survive in this economy, this world as a human being, and where you fall geographically matters on how your survival tactics develop in your life. And November, I think that was a great episode for political correctness, and it was we really didn't, reading this at this point, it's funny that applies in the capacity conversations in the discussion of resiliency and capacity, because we kind of stumbled onto that through conversation, that political correctness truly is simply the capacity to check in with yourself to maybe determine where you're at on the bullshit radar. And like, is this true? I think the political, like both in the way we hear things, like so much of what we hear in modern day society, social media, tech, everything, even from people in the grocery store, even the like announcements when you're out in the world, it's like every input that I get from our world it has a lens of political correctness. What I say and what I feel is worthy of speaking up is through the lens of political correctness, and if it's appropriate, how we will be perceived. This goes into the intention versus impact conversation, and with the bubbles of how comfortable we are with certain ways of thinking and or not, you know. Yeah. So that was wow, that was only halfway through because then we get into winter and we had an episode in January on darkness, incubation, and imbibition. I am so glad that this is my little summary. I know that you can actually, I would love to hear what you ended up calling them on Substack because they're different titles than I'm reading. But I know that this was the theme we talked about because I go nuts for the topic of imbibition, which is exactly what I explained earlier about the seed. When the seed loses its form, something dies. But because something dies, something else is reborn. And that happens in the darkness, but as well as the light. But this episode, we spent in darkness. But it's so cool that this is basically the episode of light. And how we were talking about that this is the season of fire and light, and that like in the heat of summer, like that darkness can no longer hide. So things like that's why it's like shit hits the fan. Like traffic gets bad, the market gets questionable, and everyone kind of loses their mind a little bit because it's the season of light. But the winter, talking about incubation and our capacity to even sit with stillness and darkness. That was a good conversation. And then I have faith versus faith, which maybe we also, I feel like we talked about that and then we really kind of hit on it the month after when we were in person. But yeah, I don't even know what to say about faith versus faith. Yeah.
Lowercase faith and then upper.
Yeah. Lowercase faith and uppercase F.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you want to? I need to finish my list on where I'm reading it, but you probably have the full list. And if you want anything about the articles on Substack too.
Yeah. So you all might be listening to this in Spotify or YouTube, because this is on all the streaming things, but our home is on Substack. It's got the write-up, it's got if you want to listen or if you want to see it, it's got everything. So the lowercase f in faith, the way it's labeled or named in Substack, the capacity to believe, faith, fear, and finding our own way. Because I think so much of the conversation was about our own sense of faith and potentially intuition, intention, values, not capital F faith, meaning religion and organized systems, which that episode was the one that we did in person, and that went out in April. So you will see us in person in her living room, and there's books and there's tarot and there's just all the things. And that episode is called Were We Betrayed? On faith, religion, and what it costs. It's got what it costs to think for yourself. So we talk a lot about, I think, Abrahamic, or however you want to pronounce. I speak Spanish, y'all, so my accent. But however, these monotheistic religions in particular, because both of us grew up Christian, but different types of branches in Christianity. And so that was the main context and kind of background for that, and thinking about how we got out of it, how we still have it in our lives, and how we've renegotiated with faith and religion and those systems. So that's why the question is, were we betrayed? Next, this is the episode that went out in May, how our work writes our story. So we talk a lot about, I think, our professional lives, but then also what work means. And I think work is not just income. I mean, there's a lot of things about work. And so then June, it went out in June. What is an edge? And this was also, I think, we were meandering in one of our catch-ups. There was this feeling of edge, of edginess, of getting to a limit. And that was really, we expanded on. What is an edge? On limits, capacity, and the luxury of knowing what you want. So that was last month. And then this month, went out a week or two ago, the penultimate So let's go for the last one. Beginning of the end and the cost of definition. I think in this episode we talk a lot about let me see. It says profession, identity, longing, desire, direction, feeling untethered, overextension, what the difference between longing and desire. So we've referenced, I think, a lot of etymology, or gotten into that practice to get to the root of things as much as we can. And we really went into longing, desire, what those differences are, why they matter in terms of creating something and having capacity for either thing. Because I don't even think people think. I didn't even think. It takes time to think of all these things that, to desire is to have capacity to desire something. And the same with longing, and how those kind of speak to each other, or pull, rub things off of each other. And we talk about courage. We talk about the container, so kind of referencing capacity is shaped by context. So it's really been a very juicy 1.5 year project, so much. And I feel like each thing could be its own thing, for sure. And we're still going to do things together, but it's this project and how we started it, and kind of wrapping that up.
Yeah. It's relating all of those themes back to personal resilience has been really enlightening for me. And yeah, to see that so much can change yet nothing can change. That like, okay, and I guess that's the point, but I can read out kind of the arc of my change.
Yeah.
Because I've looking at it, I even like right before this, I was like, whoa, I went back home 3 times, and 3 is a significant number to me. I don't know if it's Christian, Holy Trinity, whatever.
Yeah.
Not whatever. But but there's this recurring pattern of 3s. And I said one time to somebody who had gone through a 3-year cycle, something along the lines of, I really believe in the power of 3-year cycles. Or I think that's what they were questioning at the time. And I said, yeah, but if you did this, like, then that could be like a 3-year cycle. And I really believe in the power of 3-year cycles. And I have caught myself since then being like, holy crap, I just went through a 3-year cycle and I can see it now. And then it's like I kind of think about that at different points throughout the year. With every passing year or month even, I'm like, okay, there's this cycle that kind of just completed. Spiritually or mentally, or every year on my birthday, I kind of have treated it as like an internal, like my soul mandates me to self-reflect very deeply on, am I a good person or not, every September, like, and even though it's the end of July, there's even something like right back here that's like, oh, August is coming up, you know what that means, time to question all of your life decisions. And not that I don't intend to overdo that. And sometimes I think I do, and I'm in that trap sometimes. But that's another reason I kind of reserve it for my birthday, and being able to say, this is the time of year for that. And so yeah, 3s. But that's even looking back on this, being able to see, oh, okay, this is an anniversary here, or this is a cycle here that's the threads are overlapping and repeating, and I can see the weaving more when I intentionally kind of write it out. And so going back to like the benefit of ritual in people's lives, I don't think that can be understated. So we did start messaging in March of 2025. And so I think it is perfect that, we met in person in March of this year, 26, because that was like, wow, a full sun cycle later. And when I think of how quickly years go by, it's a reminder, looking at this, like, oh, but they are also slow because so much happened in this 12 months, and that's important. So, and that was when Justin, my husband, started looking at houses. We were living in an apartment in Liberty Lake, Washington. And it was a very lovely, we were just talking today, we love the apartment phase. Like, we've aspired to own a house for a long time, and we rented over on the west side of Washington, and we rented here, and we love renting. But we knew we wanted to buy a house. And so we started looking in that month, and by the time we had a video call, it was like, hey, I just got this offer accepted, just so you know, I'm going to be moving and my life is about to erupt. And thinking about that month, from March into April, because we closed on our house in April while we were in Missouri. Oh, that's a funny thing. So I didn't go to Missouri 3 times. I went 4 times. Wow. Okay. And so, yeah, so I went home a lot throughout this cycle. And the returning of home is something that, so yeah, numerology 4s are just as cool. I could go on about them too. But yeah, home is such a big theme, or the lens that I see everything through, honestly, anymore. And we went back to Missouri in April to surprise our niece for her 12th birthday. And a few days later, we closed on the house. So when we got back, we got the keys and were able to start remodeling right away. And that's what we did. We moved in at the end of then May, which is probably, I don't know if we recorded in that time because my life was so hectic. And I think we did once before I moved. And May, I actually wrote down a big core memory from that time, was Justin and I went to see the Civil War reenactment in Spokane. We love history, and they didn't do it this year, so we weren't able to go see it again. They did it like hours away somewhere else at a different farm. And that, I think about it a lot because very few people, I thought in this region too, I'm like, Spokane doesn't seem like a big Civil War history area. I grew up in Missouri, where there was a lot of Civil War history, and I don't know, it was both like nostalgic, but also an important reminder that it honors this part of me that is scared of Civil War in our country again. Because there's this part of me that lives, and I live in fear a lot, far more than I should, and like is scared that our country is going to implode at any moment. And COVID taught me that it could happen pretty quickly. And like, it doesn't take much for our food systems to shut down, our water sources to change drastically. There's a lot, there's like a house of cards situation, I think. And there's this like, yeah, false sense of reality a little bit, especially with the screen time that so many of us live in. And it is what it is. Even this relationship is happening in the project because of screens, and I love that. I love its ability to connect. I also want to acknowledge its ability to disconnect, and that we are in a time of disconnection. And I don't think this helps in the big picture. Or at least to the degree that we're doing it. And then I feel like I just worked straight through June, and it was just a blur. And I remember being like really on the edge by then, and before I went to Vermont in July last year, because it was my big, like, am I gonna do this with my life? So as a real estate agent, I also, I guess, was really thinking related to work, that at that time that we met, I was burnt out from my job. And I knew that in January of that year, of last year. And which sucked because I moved across the state for that job, and I really liked certain aspects to it. I couldn't, going back to what you said too, and this is one of the reasons we are friends, is there's something in me that feels like my life is so valuable. I will not put up with a certain degree of suffering, like self-sacrifice suffering. I think sacrifice is an incredibly important tenet of my growth, of human experience. We sacrifice daily. I think we do it more as we mature. I think we need it to mature. But some of the pain points that you've talked about with work and stuff too, it's like there's only so much, I'm going to say this gently, but there's only so much corruption. Well, because I'm also saying this about real estate too. And I said, and I shouldn't be so nervous because I feel like as a professional in real estate, like there's a real estate association that like could find me for, like my license, the politics, that's ridiculous. And so, oh yeah, and I just keep wiggling because I'm like, oh, I'm uncomfortable, but also the idea of saying what I'm about to say is uncomfortable, that like the human can only put up with so much corruption. And to witness corruption and leadership and corruption, and to witness the abuse of power on any level, is something only corrupt people can do for long periods of time. And I refuse to walk down that road. And there's a lot of room. I mean, these real estate waters are swimming with sharks. There's a lot of room. There's a lot of room to screw people over. And there's a way to get what you want business-wise by doing the right thing. And if there's not, then don't do the thing. But like, there's a lot of people who don't play by those rules. And I think it goes down to, that's why survival skills was like a whole topic, and why I obsess over it constantly, because the reason a lot of good people do bad things is to provide for their families and to sustain their home and to sustain their survival and their need to make a living. And so I don't question people's reasons if they are good, good people. But I think that's the moral subjectivity of any situation is tricky business. And so I don't know why I got on that tirade, but
it was correct.
It's a good, and I'm still a part of that company, and I'm not saying that it is corrupted in any way. There's just certain aspects of even my job personally that I was like, this doesn't feel right. And again, there's only so much suffering I can put up with. And when I realized I was suffering far more than I wanted to in order to provide for myself, I think there's a match to it too. I didn't quite expect the office life, I call it hugging the computer, like for 8 hours a day, to have such a high computer workload that I was really, really connecting intimately with a screen for a really large part of the day, and I could feel myself change in ways I didn't like. So that was happening in March, and when we started filming in April, I was really in this, like, I'm gonna double down on the job because I refused to quit the debt that I had. And not many people know that was a big factor in why I stayed. But I feel like I probably would have quit a lot sooner, just out of respect for the company. And I feel weird saying that because I feel like I disrespected them quitting a year and a half in. And I think that's a weird, I know it's a weird, like, guilt thing. And I like the fear and the shame and the guilt, like, they're go-tos. And I wanted to do right by the good people I worked with, because I did work with some people. But knowing that it wasn't a fit for me, and I didn't give up. And I do think I practiced some skills that that are important. And one of them being, like, I don't know, I feel like staying in a bad situation does create a certain amount of resilience, because even if it's maybe not, bad in some ways, I did find ways to adapt that I even enjoyed sometimes. So that was a weird paradox. Oh, and I was going to say that earlier, that like one of the early definitions of capacity that we came up with was the ability to hold paradox. Yeah. And I mean, even like retelling this story, I'm like, wow, there is a lot of paradox in just life in general. And even the idea of having a ritual for the ability to self-reflect, I'm like, there's a lot of paradox just in that too. It's like, oh, yeah. So by the time in our journey that we got to a year ago, last July, I decided on this eco village tour that I was on in Vermont that I was going to dedicate my life to this pursuit of living, to the pursuit of this way of living, because I saw so many examples of people intentionally living in communities and practicing self-governance, which means practicing self-leadership and simultaneously practicing earth stewardship. These people, even if it wasn't like the urban developments, they had city gardens, and that's like so valuable and lovely that like if it met so many people's needs who were there, even though it looked so different from a different community that I would have chosen to live at. But these people all shared values that I can get behind. And I decided that that was it. And shortly after that, the founder, Cynthia Tina, offered me the job of leading the first Pacific Northwest Eco Village tour, which I have now been planning since after that point up until now. And this month, oh my gosh, it's like hitting me that this month it was released to the public for the first time. And so we already have 4 signups because the first 5 spots get like the super early bird rate. And so we already have 4. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is wild to reflect on that. Yeah, I followed my heart to this eco village tour, and that led me to an opportunity that I could further live my values and passions. And so that is a blessing. And then I note that like I just work a lot after that too, because I think doing that job, I just go into work mode, and that's because I knew I wasn't actively working on my personal mission and plan, but I also was involved with the Northwest Intentional Communities Association, and so I was doing board meetings and events. Well, I was still involved, and I think towards that time, because they had a gathering in the Seattle area that I couldn't attend, and about that time I realized I needed to step back from more, and so I did. And I got involved with more local stuff. And in September of last year, I did my first tabling event here in the Spokane area, because as an herbalist, you like tabling events and selling your goodies. And I like tabling events to sell my goodies because I make bitters and teas and other herbal goods that I used to go to farmers markets and sell, but now I try to just do one-off events. And that was a 2-day festival called the Fleece Fiber Festival. So that, even saying it out loud, like that was a beautiful experience for me, because I had lived here for a little over a year at that point, and I met a lot of farmers, sheep farmers, other local farmers, beekeepers, rabbit people, other plant people. I was the only herbalist with the booth there, so I had a lot of cool conversations, and I remember after that weekend feeling really grounded in this place. And that's significant, because I think the ability to build a relationship with a place is like a lost skill. And not that I have the skill, but it's like it's something that once I realized it is a skill, I'm like, oh, I need to practice this, and I think more people should too. Of like, how do I? And I think we think of it as building familiarity, but I think the feeling of lostness is something so many people are experiencing. So the luxury of knowing what you want, comes from finding what lights you up and then walking in that direction, I suppose.
Is great, everything in nuance. The internet is great. I wouldn't have found Sarah otherwise. There's so much good, but in the same token, and I love that the farmers market is kind of like this inverse of that. It's small, it's local, you don't have to search for people and things. Like, it's already set up in such a way that the people who already are interested in local, in small owned, in whatever, like, they go there because it's important to them. And so it's already done this filtering, and you've already kind of found your people. And then it just automatically lowers the guard, the barrier. And it's just amazing. I love it. I full on love it. And I feel like that's something that I want more of this year, next year. But just, I think I don't know, maybe this is something I'm going to noodle with or figure out. But like, to explore more of this kind of local, hyper local, because I'm in the state of Virginia, but I'm not even targeting the whole state of Virginia, which is its own thing, like Northern Virginia versus Southern Virginia. I'm in like the northern tip of Northern Virginia and right by Washington, D.C. and like this, like, continue to dig down. And there's something so beautiful, because I was sharing with Sarah that one of my regulars invited me to her birthday. And so now I'm creating this personal relationship, this connection with somebody 30 minutes that maybe I wouldn't have met otherwise. And there's that kind of human trust that comes, that she sees me, she knows me, she can ask questions. There's not this like curtain of the internet and having to prove that, like, it's already there. So I'm just in love with it altogether. I feel like I want us as a community, as a human community, to build that, whatever that looks like in our own areas. But just like, there really is community, and I wouldn't have guessed, again, like, trying things, right? I wouldn't have guessed that would have been such a heart-opening, eye-awakening, like, just completely profoundly beautiful experience. And it's great. So just
it feels old. It feels like one of the oldest things we do.
Yes.
Because the market is where we've always been able to trade and barter and share resources. And I think in its essence is like the gift economy is one of the reasons that I think eco villages are going to be like a necessity of the future, because in the present, I mean, so many people are doing it now in modern day, even here in the United States, in some way, shape, or form, because resources are so expensive or scarce, or people have a higher need than ever to share because of the cost of everything. And so, yeah, I think to bring the market as close to home as possible, and to bring our food as close to home, and everything else. But and I know that's not possible for everything, but yeah, labor, even sharing labor and skills and knowing people. And I think the people who even go to markets have a richer network of resources, because, at least, I mean, I've been to so many different ones that I've just been shocked at. Oh, there's the local, like, blacksmith, or like the knife sharpening guy, like the guy who can understand iron and metal and blades, and versus everything, the full spectrum of the resources you need to survive as a human on this world. So yeah, in my looking back, like, after that, I guess, when I say I'm stepping back from things, I actually was looking at my calendar, and that's why I have some of these notes. And I'm like, well, I didn't step back too much, did I? Because I could do this. I eventually did, and I think there's something interesting looking at the seasons too, because October, November, I was working. I mean, just going back to work, and I think, going to work to a job that's like, oh, just on off. It's easy to slip into the seasons of like, I just go to work and come home for a while, and there's not much else that happens, and that's awesome and great. But that's how I have it remembered. It's like, that was just that. It is what it is chapter, because I was also doing a naturalist course at the time, and by November, December, I was getting behind enough in the online coursework. I decided I didn't want to do the online coursework, but I still got involved with my local, like I do volunteer work for the local conservations and stuff, which is where I do my hikes. I was doing grief hikes. I had done a couple this year, but last year I did a lot more between the spring and summer. And that was really eye-opening for me. I actually just today got a call from somebody who knew that I lead those hikes and was like, I would like to connect with you about the death of a loved one. And I when I think about rewilding real estate in its essence, it is the rewilding or returning entomology to a more natural state. And I know natural is an ambiguous word, but I think it kind of is the response in my mind to the disconnected, dissociated, disembodied society that we're living in. And I personally am like really good at dissociating. And so I think that it's a coping mechanism for a deeper symptom, and I being able to see, like, I am still only a person in this larger context. That's why I think giving our energy to systems that we think we can actually make an impact on, and for me, it's just real estate. Like, I think it just ticks all the boxes for the things I like and that I'm good at. And of like, okay, how can we course correct on a bigger scale? And that's why when I see other people with the same vision for eco villages or eco village, agri village type plans, I'm like, you see it too. Like, you see this bigger need. And yeah, I guess looking at this year and tying it back to, I spent December and going back to Missouri for Christmas. And I think by the time that, looking back at the year that I got to that point, I was really letting things go. Like, I stepped back from being on the board of the Northwest Intentional Community Association. Recently, I've tried to get more involved with that because it was like, we need time. We can't do all of this with just 2 or 3 people on a board. Like, this is no longer sustainable. And that became the same for me with this online coursework, trying to get another natural certification because I love studying, but these standards that I have in my head don't line up with the human capacity to achieve it all sometimes. So going back home over the winter, when I say home, I mean Missouri, and then coming back home and it feeling like home. Most recently, I went back to drive this month, and this was another, like, oh, it's so nice to come home to Spokane. And this time it hit in a different way. Looking at this between April of 25 and July of 26, going back home to Missouri and back to Spokane as home, every time it was like the home was deeper. So that's a neat thing to witness. And then in January, I wrote death and family stress because my husband's grandma died. We had Christmas with her last Christmas, and it was beautiful. And she died a few weeks later. It was like she got it, and I found deep inspiration in witnessing someone who was ready to die. And that really impacted me. She was so brave toward the end, and her whole life really, but like, I was inspired by that. And simultaneously there for her funeral, I got to see my dad in the worst health of his life so far. And that was shocking to my system as well. And around that time, I was like, I can't do this job anymore. Like, I had already had a lot of pressure internally to like leave this job. And that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I was like, I am putting in my notice, start looking for my replacement in February. And around that time, I guess before that, my dad was hospitalized the second time. And the second time, I wrote Missing the Lion King in February because The Lion King is one of my favorite Broadway productions ever. I have seen it 3 times now, and I had tickets to see it in February, and I was on the phone with family because of my dad's health, and he had, like, the day I had tickets to go see The Lion King, he had, like, a stroke-like event, and it was just high stress, like, what's going on? He did what? What did he say? And, like, calling people, my mind was just not there at all, and I realized The Lion King is starting right now. Like, we're late. We can't miss it. And that was really surprising because it was a reminder of we do only have capacity for so much, and thank God the ticket people were understanding. I paid a little extra to get a re-ticketing for like a few nights later, and it was amazing. And by then we had news that he had recovered well enough and he was coherent, so we were like, okay, he's stable. And that was in the dead of winter, and I just think, well, in like pre-spring. And then, oh no, you froze. Man. Oh. Yeah, that's exactly how it happened too. Everyone freezes, and then you came to see me shortly after that. And spring, I remember went on the hike right here close to my house, my favorite place to lead hikes and do hikes. I saw the first wildflower of the season. It was a little one up on the hill when we were walking. I don't know, maybe it was an elevation thing. But that was another big before and after. And you caught me in a beautiful time in my transition in my work. And yeah, I remember, yeah, it was like first date vibes, seeing each other, like, did I trust her, you know? And
Oh,
it was the best. And I felt so grounded as well in the decision because it was such a pivot point for me too. And you were in a pivot point. And the month after that, I left that office job, trained my replacement, and went back to sales as a real estate agent. So that whole time I couldn't represent clients. And so in May, for the first time in 2 years or ish, I could start to represent clients again. And I joined a team and got some leads, and just closed my first deal last week. I have another one under contract right now, and have a listing that is a tricky listing. It's not the easiest listing situation ever. So I'm learning. Yeah, that's what I've been doing since then. But it's really interesting going from month to month and looking at this big picture of I left the job, and then since then have been very like business, like rewilding real estate oriented. And so what I've noticed is there isn't this like gap of months, of weeks where I'm like, yeah, that was just like workflow. Like several weeks of my life were just dedicated to just work and go home, work and go home. Like that's of course happening as an agent, but I feel like the little things I've been able to do, like go to the west side, the Seattle area, the west side of the state, my state. That's what I call it, the west side, the east side. The cultures are so different, but being able to go do work over there, both for a forest school that I love and adore, and I'm still in relationship with those programs of like, yeah, I still think intentionally helping guide people of all ages back to reconnection with your natural environment is beneficial. Build out more of the Eco Village tour. I was able to go back to Missouri for an extended period to spend real time with my family and my husband's family and old friends. Gosh, I had lunch with my best friend from middle school. And that was amazing. And then I had, to round it all off, I had a bucket list adventure check because on the drive home, we're from Independence, Missouri. It's where our first house was. I was born there. And that's the City of Three Trails. So it starts the historic Oregon, California, and Santa Fe trails. And I've always wanted to drive the entire Oregon Trail. So that's what we did. And it took us 4 days, not 6 months or 5 months, however long it took. the pioneers or the immigrants to cross that 2,000-mile stretch in the 1850s or so. And we stopped at a lot of historical sites, and I had no idea we had like such like rock carvings from the 1850s, like the Wagon Trail, like 1859. Like this is, I'm fascinated. The story of Manifest Destiny is why I'm so interested in real estate and housing justice and like this current culture that we live in. And I feel like chronically questioning it and simultaneously like loving it because I'm happy to be here. So yeah, I think my capacity to hold paradox over this project has absolutely increased. I think being able to acknowledge all these cycles and that, you know, making choices that in the moment feel like the right thing to do and making them and moving on, I think is the most like being able to trust myself. I think that's another big capacity that we built, you know, like the seed that you planted a year and a half ago helped inform the decision of today. And it's the same for both of us and like all of and any person really. But I'm so grateful for the opportunity to do this with you and to see in real time that endings are beginnings. And I remember the very first episode sharing our stories. I had this horrible vulnerability hangover after it because I was like, I said too much. I said too much about my life. But sharing all this now, like I even have this little like, Sarah, you're like, stop rambling. But this is the story of my life. And this is like the resiliency to actually, oh, I feel like emotional, but like to see that like once where shame once was, there is now bravery, or courage, or fearlessness. And like that is that like that self-awareness only comes, I think, from process. And even if it's on your own, but it's also a witnessing thing too. And maybe that's why we did this, is for, we said it early on, guys, this is for our own self-development. But, and anyone that's along for the ride of learning about who you are, that's what this is. So yeah, practice.
Because it's like being witnessed, being allowing ourselves to be witnessed, witnessing ourselves, like all of that. I'm curious now the etymology of witness, but it's just like, you know, because I'm thinking now in terms of in the courtroom, we ask for witness, we ask for corroboration of stories, and you know, when we're in work environments, it's better to have things documented because documentation is a point of reference, is a witness. And I think that in and of itself, like it says many things that we don't trust each other, or like our minds might perceive things differently with time, with emotion. Which is why I think it's so cool that humans, I don't know how but like humans started something about painting and like archiving things. This need to archive, to know who we were or who we are and where we're going. And because I don't know of any other species that documents things like we do, and the need to like be remembered or be seen, you know, there's this deep need for that. And I think for those of us who are freedom seekers, are those who are like village, eco village, community, local community, farmers market, like all of this, I think, is under an umbrella of wanting to be seen, needing to be seen, but seen in a very deep, intrinsic way, not just like I've been seen, you know, like the camera spotted me, but being really felt. And I think when environments and people, places, things, potentially abuse that witnessing of like, okay, well, you're coming into work and you're just going to do these things, or you're just going to be in a relationship. Like, I think there's an empty calorie type of feeling in emptiness. And I love the witnessing. And I think that's, we know, I think, when we're in relationship with friends, with ourselves, I mean, ideally with other people in work or whatever, and we feel like, oh my God, my energy has been drained. That's an energy vampire. So you weren't witnessed. You were taken and sucked dry, and even, maybe this container takes something from us, but it also gives. It's reciprocal. And I think that's maybe something about the witness, the journey of the witness and the witnesser, witnessee, like, is this reciprocity, this level of deep nourishment, that maybe some of us have, maybe not everybody, right? I can't speak for that, but I love that. And I told Sarah that I'm going to be so excited, nervous and excited. I don't know, because I don't listen to myself after podcasts go out. I'm just like, it exists. It's
Yeah. Sometimes I do. Yeah.
Yeah. I just be curious, like when she and I are old and gray, and we look back and we reflect and we look at this, and we will have this for all of our lives, and you all are all witnesses, and it's just so cool. It's so cool. So I'm really blessed and grateful, in awe of us, because it's not easy to talk about these things and show up, and we've made time. We're consistent. Let's make time to do this, and that was a discipline that was rigorous. And even if maybe we didn't want to, maybe, or like there's other things that are taking capacity from us, but we always come back, and we always, committed to the witnessing, the journey, the capacity, everything. So it's been such an honor. There's going to be more of us. I feel like it's the end, but this is one end, and then there will be a new beginning. So,
yeah, exactly. And I was somewhere, and someone was it was at a real estate meetup, and the organizer of the meetup, she was like, I do this for selfish reasons. I just bring in professionals, and they share on this topic, and I just learn every month, like, because she is always present, as the host. And I'm like, wait, I do the same thing. Like, I totally, like, it was weird to hear, like, well, then don't, like, it can't be just selfish. I'm like, wait, that might be the best reason, because you're not trying to say this is the right way or this is the wrong way. Like, you're just providing a space of education where you yourself can have your own questions answered. And it's shocking how many times that's beneficial to someone else. Like, this idea that we are so, and God, oh yeah, I don't want to get soapboxy about real estate, but like that, I think that's one of the reasons. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I think it's working in the way that it is, and the way that it's working is, I think we are in the worst affordability crisis of the history of our country. And it's like, I can't stop asking why this is happening. And the rate of which, the plants just moved in front of me. It scared me. Nature is responding. Even, when your dogs were barking earlier, I was like, I'm part canine. They can hear me. Like, I feel heard. They know. It's like, yep. Yeah, like, I guess just, and hearing myself say that, I'm like, there's a place for the stillness and the quiet truth. And every time I get to that place as well, I go back to this need to speak up, that my role here on this earth is to grow, I think, and to try to make as much good happen in the little time that I'm here. And I think, the work that we both do is on that path, and to share from different vantage points why goodness matters, and why energy matters, and our resilience to meet challenges, and our ability to not completely drain ourselves from our bodies, like to still allow ourselves to be present enough, to be here. And that's, I guess, part of my soapbox with real estate is like, if we, like, this question that haunts me is like, can we not afford to live here anymore? People all over the United States are asking themselves that right now. And I am far more interested in the growing population of people who can no longer afford homes than I am in the population of people who are curious what to do with their money, so they go out and buy second and third and fourth homes. And I am here to serve both of those populations. Let me be very clear, because the people who are buying their second and third and fourth homes are very, very, I would say most often doing good things with it. It's for family, it's for their own business dreams or mission or whatever, even an investment for their grandkids. Like, that's part of the dream. That I think I'm just very bothered by the act of that dream means that it's like, it's not even a dream for people anymore. And the dream is dying. And what other ways do the lower class have of accessing the wealth of the upper? And the American dream is that you're allowed to go up in any way, and there's just no, I think I'm deeply concerned that that access is going away. I think that's all I'll say about that. Go on for a long time, and maybe we'll have a episode or conversation about that. But I really wrote down that I am a freedom seeker, because I love that you said that we are seeking freedom, because I have to have it in my notes too. Like, I live at the intersection of human rights, civil rights, and property rights. And so that is my work in this world. And at the end of the day, underneath of all that, like, the shadow identity I have is like, I don't really believe in rights. I believe in responsibilities and human capacity to do the right thing, good people. But I believe in operating in the light. We need to have something like human, like rights, and so that's the realm I play in. And thank you for seeking the freedom to not have those rights trampled with me, and for processing and witnessing, growing. So I don't want it to end, Raquel.
Opened the whole epilogue there, and I was like, okay, I also have so much to say. So I won't. I will do my best. I will just say that there will be more of us. We're just finalizing this specific chapter with this specific intention. I feel like conversations will always happen. And I love that you said that you love freedom seekers, because I was going back and forth on that. Like, what is freedom? Like, freedom is many things to many people in different ways, and blah, blah, blah. And to seek it out, that movie, The Pursuit of Happiness, Will Smith, and it's like this idea, like, what, like, this is why I got an English degree, is I love words. I love, the intentionality of picking certain words and stringing them together, and the meaning behind them, or the meaning we choose to give them, and all of it. And I feel like all of that is power, is freedom, for me to be able to speak and vocalize in such a way and potentially be understood, probably, possibly, hopefully, like, I freedom, I feel like, and to seek it out, because it's not something just granted, given. I mean, I feel like nature is free, but it has its structure, it has its constraints, it has its cycles and tumultuousness, and that's part of freedom too. And so I just love that, because it's like, I think those of us are seeking, wanting, yearning, needing, desiring, longing a certain way of being that we're not seeing, we're not being witnessed to in this world, in this society. And we're all kind of like outliers or something, trying to find each other, put our antennas out there, and it can be very lonely. But thanks to the internet and thanks to also local communities, like both, we need both. I think it's such an honor. Like I always tell my husband, I'm like, I can't believe I met this awesome person that I never would have met. Like, what are the odds via internet? And not only have we done this awesome, amazing project and witnessed each other and supported each other, now we're friends, and I call her my soul sister, and she's amazing. And I went to see her in person, and she's gonna visit me one day, and like we're just gonna continue cultivating, because we've grown this little seed, and we're sprouting, and it's growing, and it's just so amazing. Which I think gives me a lot of faith and balances the fear. Like it's so nourishing and beautiful that this exists, that we have each other, and that I'm just happy. I'm happy to be alive. There's a lot to be concerned or like cautious about, and at the same time, there's a lot of beauty and wonder and pleasure. And quick plug for our Spotify playlist, because we do have a Spotify playlist that Sarah and I combined some music that we felt very intentional and hopefully inspiring and supportive and all that good stuff. So check that out. All of this is on Substack. You can find Sarah at her website and me at my website, and email us, let us know, comment, share, all the things that we normally don't blurt out, but it's there.
Yes, they are all options. Good options.
They're all options. Yeah. Okay, Sarah, I leave it to you. Any final words? Because I think I done said it.
Yeah, I think I done said it too. I was just noticing, like, oh yeah, I have this half-done tattoo over here that I'm like, we are mid-process.
Yeah.
And I think that's always like one of the themes of this is checking in with reality constantly. And I'm so glad we've been able to do that, which means looking back at this project, it was the most authentic thing I have done. Maybe not the most, but like I can trust that I came up to this with such authenticity that I can look back and be like, yeah, this is true. And we talk about truth a lot too, but I would say that we have both cultivated more capacity in our lives to be more resilient human beings, and I hope that anyone else who's ever listened to any of these can say the same thing. And maybe not because of these episodes, but I hope that it has informed your journey to some degree, and that we can all help each other down the road. So yeah, I'd love to stay. I would love to hear from anyone who is listening out there. Actually, I'll say that. It's like, please drop a comment right now, and then we can come back to this moment and see who we reached. So thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone listening, in this moment and in other moments whenever, and just a lot of gratitude. So, and thanking myself and thanking you, and just all the things, like all the levels of gratitude. It's amazing. So,
okay.
The Midwestern goodbye has stuck with me now, so I'm like dragging it out.
This is the Midwestern goodbye, everybody. It's when you take half an hour to say bye.
That's right. No, but yeah. Thank you, everyone. Sarah.
Thank you.